Yes, guys, I'm Si. Welcome to Cardiff City World. A new place, and I'm very, very much delighted. I'm privileged to welcome former Cardiff City winger and midfielder.
And forward.
Over 200 appearances for the club and lots and lots of goals, as well as winning the treble with Barrytown. It is Mr. Cohen Griffith. How are you, mate?
I'm all right, thank you, Si.
Good man. Thank you very much for welcoming me into your home, first of all. It's very much appreciated.
No problem.
You're a stellar host, giving me some lovely some donuts and tea.
Yeah,
makes a mean cup of tea.
Gutted about the donuts.
Yeah, he didn't want to give them away. You keep them for yourself. No, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me. It's really looking forward to it. Obviously, we've had a couple of chats before online.
Yeah,
but I think it's different in person. It just gives it that sort of personal feel. And I wanted to have a chat to you, really, just about your career and things like that. Take us back to the very beginning. Where were you where did you grow up? Where were you born? All that sort of stuff.
Right. So I was born in Guyana, South America. Wasn't there for very long. I moved to Leicester when I was one and a half. So I grew up in Leicester. So do you want to go into football then?
Yeah, I mean, was it always football that was like your sort of sport, if you like, or did you play other sports? What were you like as a kid?
Well, apparently, according to my mum anyway, football, picked up a football as soon as I could walk, pretty much. But I've done other sports, and I like all sports. Football has been always the one thing I've come back to, but I've played rugby, tennis, badminton, squash, all sorts of stuff. I'll have a go at anything. I'll watch anything, but football is the one that's always come above everything else.
And was it sort of when you were a kid? Do you remember? Did you want to be a footballer from a young age, or was it something that just sort of came about due to your ability?
I think most little kids, if they like football, they want to be a footballer. So yeah, I think I've always wanted to be a footballer. I think one of the first things I remember watching really is perhaps George Best. I remember seeing him and the amount of abuse he was getting, and I was thinking, I don't know if I want to be a footballer then, But fortunately, that was just at the time, it wasn't as prevalent when I was playing and growing up. But it was always football.
So, how did you make your way to Cardiff City then?
Well, it's a long journey, and it took a fair while as well. I got to be fair. Like I said, I wanted to be a footballer, and then when I think the thing for me that didn't help was that I went to a rugby school. So when I was like 10, Leicester City had one of the very first apparently type academy types. So promising players, they just used to bring us in, and it was only for like a 6 weeks period, and then keep an eye on you, stuff like that. So I did that probably when I was 10, and then from then I wasn't really playing football with the schools anyway, because mine was a rugby school.
Yeah.
So I perhaps dropped out. That's what I'd like to think anyway. Perhaps they thought he's not good enough and just binned me off. I don't know. But I didn't really go back anymore. So I was playing rugby then for the school for maybe 5 years until you get a little bit older and then go back into playing representative football. So I missed out on that. Then I went and played local football. And I was just playing on the parks, basically. Just playing on the parks with my mates. And then I'm trying to think the standard, it'd probably be like Welsh League Division 2, probably came, said, come and play for us. And I went and played for them. And then someone said, come and play for us a little bit higher up, and I said no. Actually,
okay.
I said no. I'm happy playing with my mates. I'm enjoying it and whatever it was. And this person said to me, and I sort of adopted this to try and progress. He said, "You can always go back. You don't know when you're going to get another chance to go forward." And so I thought, okay, then I'll, it made sense to me. So I took that as my sort of, as a way I wanted to try and progress. And every time I got an opportunity to go forward, I took it, knowing that I could probably go back if I wanted to. And then within, I would say probably within 5 or 6 years of being on the parks, I was playing for Cardiff.
How old would you have been, Jack, when you first signed for Cardiff?
I was 26.
So that's quite old, really, isn't it, to get that opportunity?
Yeah.
I mean, I know I spoke to Andy Legg again recently, and he was the same. He came into it quite late, really. These days, sometimes kids are with clubs from 16, younger than that.
Yeah.
But 26, you're a fully grown man. You're well aware of what you want. So you came in as a replacement for Jimmy Gilligan, didn't you? Sort of.
Or
depending on how you look at it.
I would say more probably Kevin Bartley. Is it Bartlett?
Bartlett, yeah.
Yeah. Because Jimmy Gilligan and me were just completely different players. But I think it's Kevin Bartlett, isn't it?
So yeah.
Oh, what was his name? I can't remember, but another lad who was playing up front with Jimmy Gilligan, and he went to Notts County. And I would say I was probably more of a replacement for him. And Len Ashurst bought me.
How did Len welcome you in? Well, what was your first meeting with Len Ashurst?
Well, I was at Kettering at the time, and I think we met at some, a hotel, some halfway, probably around Birmingham, Coventry way. And, I was surprised because at that stage, I'd pretty much given up hope of being a professional. But, they wanted someone to try and fill that hole. They'd spoken to Peter Morris, who was the manager at Kettering at the time. And, he'd recommended me. And, I was surprised that it was actually happening. And, it wasn't even a case of any negotiations. I mean, you try and pretend sort of stuff, but, again...
Just wanted the opportunity.
You wanted the opportunity, you could always go back.
Yeah.
So, so there wasn't a great deal. I was more concerned with not pushing it too much, so as it went away.
I mean, you scored in your debut, didn't you? I think after 19, 20 minutes or whatever. But what was the build-up to that debut like? Was it easy to settle in to the squad and the training and things, or was it a bit of a sort of culture shock? What was it like?
Well, there wasn't any sort of settling in because I signed and then I went straight to the pitch. I don't think I'd even met half the players. So I went from Leicester and met the team in... Well, I must have been on the way to Huddersfield. I didn't really know too many people. And then Len Ashurst had sort of named the team, and I was in it. And to be fair, because Steve Lynex was there, Steve Lynex had already got the shirt on. So, and he could have took it really badly. He took the shirt off, shook my hand and said, good luck. And that is it. So that helped.
Yeah, just relaxed you a little bit.
Yeah, it relaxed me. And also the fact it taught me a lesson, never put a shirt on before the manager's named the side.
Yeah.
So that helped. And then obviously getting the goal early helped me settle in.
Where did you played, like you said, we played range of positions on the wing. I remember you on the wing. That's my memory of you, like as a child, is just being like this sort of skillful winger. But I was young.
So your memory's not that good then?
Yeah, that's it. No. But you played sort of a more central midfield role, like a defensive midfield role, I guess they'd call it these days. But like as well as a striker, what was your preference?
I wouldn't have said that I was a defensive midfield anything, to tell the truth. No, I was signed as a striker. When I was at Kettering, I used to play on the wing. So but it had always been in between those two positions, depending on how the manager saw me and who else was in the squad, really.
Yeah.
So I signed as a striker, played up there for a little bit. I would say I've never really been a real out-and-out goal scorer, and perhaps Linacius felt he needed that. So then he went and got Daly and Paul Miller, and Daly is more, and then that's when I sort of went onto the wing, and then you're sort of just chipping in with the odd goals and stuff like that. So I would never be like Daly and score 25, 30 goals a season. Even junior football, I wouldn't have done that. So, yeah, but I felt I could play a lot of positions, but I used to play right back and left back and that sort of stuff. But I wouldn't have said, I didn't like midfield. It's too hurly-burly for me particularly. So I like being wide because I only have to concentrate on one thing in front of me, really. Or I like being up front where I've got my back to goal, and then again you can see what's coming towards you a little bit. So I didn't really like playing midfield as such.
Who was what players did you prefer playing in that midfield area when you were out on the wing? Who were your sort of favourite guys to have in the middle, getting the ball out to you? You had a few, didn't you? Like decent ones.
Yeah, well, you know, Nick Richardson obviously was there or thereabouts. Paul Ramsey was there. Robbie James was there, but he tended to play more right back. Blakey was there. So, you know, loads of people. That was the problem, I suppose, in that playing on the wing. And if you're going to stick to that rigid formation that they wanted, then they, you know, you relied on people to give you the ball. And sometimes I felt in some matches that, you know, because you're working up and you're working back and supporting, and I'm thinking, I haven't actually touched the ball yet. You know, and I'm knackered. And I think, well, how many times have you touched the ball? So, you know, if I was then in a position, if I was playing right back and I had somebody in front of me, I'd try and make sure that they got that ball, because it's demoralising, you know, doing all that work and supporting and coming back supporting and all that sort of stuff and not actually having a touch. So just to get the ball and get it back, you know, it just keeps the morale higher.
Of course. What about the fullbacks behind you? Any preferences there?
Again, I had a few. Dope Brazil. Robbie James was good, and Robbie never got skinned by anybody. You know, and he was at the, you know, the later stages of his career. Surly was good. I got to be fair, when I played on the left, because he just used to bomb past me, and then he bombed past me the other way, and I felt he's doing a lot of my work for me. So, you know, Neil Matthews was there as well. So again, there's loads of...
A lot of talent there, isn't there?
Yeah, there's loads of players and good players. So I wouldn't say there was particularly one that
was there one that you linked up better with, do you think? Or had a better understanding?
I think if I was on the left, Surly was probably be the one. And then Derek Brazil when he was on the right, because he, you know, as an intelligent footballer, he'd know when to go past me or whatever it might be, or when to just, you know, support. And then, I mean, as for me, I wasn't that bothered about me getting the crosses in. You know, as long as those crosses came in from my side, then I'd be happy whether it was me or somebody else putting them in. That's what. So with Derek and with Damon, they would just support at the right time or go past me at the right time, and then the cross would still come in. So you know, that's how I measured my performances. Even though obviously, what's his name, Rob always used to give me 5, so I'm not sure about that at all.
With regards to people like Robbie James or Derek Brazil, you know, Damon Zill, real good defenders, would their ability to defend and not get beaten as much help allow you to sort of focus a little bit more on your attacking side, or was it still, did the manager expect defensive duties done by the wingers? Because football's changed so much over the years.
Yeah.
I just wondered what the kind of instructions were for you as on the wing from a defensive point of view.
Yeah, I think the defensive duties were still expected, and I used to come back and sometimes I used to be the first defender, and then if they got past me, then they'd have Derek or Jace or whoever it might be behind. So but then I was speaking to Surly about this a few years back, and he says the game has changed now. You expect your defenders to defend whoever that man might be, rather than you doubling up on them, and then you're there to be that first line of attack almost. So the game has changed.
What do you make of the changes to the game now in terms of just as a spectacle, like when you watch football? Do you prefer it now or back in the day?
Aspects of it I prefer now.
Not VAR.
No, but I can understand the need for VAR, because like Cardiff got relegated or could have been closer to staying up on a goal that was miles offside.
Of course.
And it cost them. And sport nowadays, all sport, but it's not just a nice little side thing. It's big money, and so you've got to get those decisions correct.
Yeah.
And if VAR helps that, then it's got to be a good thing. The fact that it's taken so long to do it, whereas when it first came in, I think it was a World Cup or something. It worked really well, and now
it's got worse.
It's taken ages. And people don't know whether to celebrate the goal or not, and then it's almost like you celebrate anyway, and then the ref stops, and then was it last night 5 minutes or whatever it is? So then you celebrate.
It was unbelievable
again.
in the Wales game.
Yeah. So I think that there is definitely some room for these decisions to be correct. Look at Wales women the other day, where they had I can't remember who they played, but that ball was way over the line. And it wasn't given. Now, that's an important decision. The game, they might still have lost the game, but that would have changed the game. And then a side that's all of a sudden full of confidence is now having to chase a game. And Wales were trying to hit them on the break. They've got to open up. The whole thing changes simply because they didn't have, and the goal line technology does work quite quickly. I don't see why on international matches that there's not goal line technology. Even if you don't have VAR, goal line technology could be there.
It's everywhere, isn't it? The goal line technology, really.
Yeah.
And I think, it feels like it's got worse. Like that Wales game last night, felt like there was like every time they were checking something, it was like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And even then, it didn't feel like they really were confident in the decisions they were making.
Yeah.
And penalties is a big one for me for handballs, because to me, it used to be, you'd get some dodgy ones, but like, for instance, the Wales one last night, I just don't know what Brennan Johnson's supposed to do.
What he's supposed to do, yeah.
Because he's got his hand by his side. He's trying to block the shot, which he has to do.
Yeah.
There's no intention to handball it.
Yeah.
And it's almost like, how can it possibly be a handball? But they were obviously sure about it, because they not only did the ref give it, but then VAR confirmed it. So
yeah, but I think sometimes that the VAR they're scared as well, because they know that every decision they're making is going to be sort of micro inspected as well. So they're thinking, well, this is what we will do. And then they say, we've got better check this again and check this again and check this again. And that's maybe why it's taking too long. I mean, there's got to be some way of doing it a little bit quicker. But I think the need to get those decisions right is really important.
Yeah, it's massive, isn't it? It's like you say, it's big money. Flipping back to your Cardiff career and your time at Cardiff, what's your worst memory of your time at Cardiff?
Worst memory? I think when we got relegated, I don't know where, I can't remember where it was. Was it Bury away on the last day of the season? That was probably the worst, because I felt we had the opportunity to get out of that one. even on the last day we had the opportunity. But also, I think it was that season that we had a little bit of, we were struggling all year, and we had a little bit of a run. And if we would played on, I think it was New Year's Day or something like that, and if we'd have played on that day with the confidence that we had going, I thought we would have won. We would have got out of the relegation zone, and then it's a different feeling. And then the game was called off. Don't know why it was called off, because we trained on the pitch. This is
bizarre, isn't it?
Yeah. So the game was called off, and then the teams around you sort of picked up points, and so you're back in it again, and never really escaped it. So I think that was the one that stung me the most.
And obviously Cardiff coming off the back of a relegation now, in the modern day. As a group of players, like, how did you guys cope with that, deal with it? Like, how did you feel? And also, what was it like being out and about, in Cardiff and stuff at that time?
Well, when we got relegated?
Yeah.
Well, it's towards the end of the season for me. So, I'm not a great one for going out and about all the time anyway, so perhaps during the season. But so I wouldn't really know. You don't see too much of the lads after the season either. You come back and you try and reset. But I know that, nobody wants to be associated with a side that is relegated. You don't want that on your CV, sort of stuff. So, you do everything to avoid that. And at the end of the day, whatever we did wasn't quite enough. Or perhaps we weren't quite good enough. I don't know, but it's not good to be relegated, and you don't want that. But and I suppose from the fans' point of view, I think anyway, and you're a fan, you'll be able to say, but if you get relegated, then you want to feel as a fan that the players have done everything that they possibly can to not have that situation.
Of course, yeah. You just want to. If you've given everything and you're not good enough, then
that's one
thing. But then when you've got a lot of doubts or reasons to not point the finger, but sort of you're looking at certain players or the group as a collective, and if you feel like they haven't quite been at the right attitude or they haven't tried.
Yeah,
that's when it becomes a problem, because I think it's and it can get obviously it's the kind of the word that's everywhere these days, but it can get quite toxic quite quickly if people think that your team is not trying or they're not doing the right things. Should we say it can get quite negative quite quickly, I think.
Yeah.
What was your experience generally speaking with Cardiff fans?
Well, it's always been good. Fans, seem to like me. I don't think I've had a negative experience.
That's good.
And it might simply be that, they can see, despite failings or whatever it is, or maybe not quite good enough or whatever, that at least you've tried your best. And, I say this to the lads if I'm coaching or whatever, just try. And if you've tried your best, then nobody can ask for anything more than that. And and I think that's how I try to play anyway. Yeah,
that's what I would say to my son and the team is all, just give your all. And one thing I always say to them is you're all good at football, but you have to earn the right to play your football. So you have to work harder than the other team, and you've got to have the right attitude. And if you do that, and then they're better than you, then that's okay. That happens.
Yeah.
But don't come off thinking, I could have tried harder, or I could have run more, or I could have worked harder for my teammate, or whatever it may be, because then you will have those regrets and those what ifs.
Yeah.
You came through, obviously Cardiff, sort of 80s.
Late 80s.
Late 80s, absolutely, late 80s. Nearly 90s, really.
It was, 89.
Yes. Football crowds and that were different back then. Would you get like a lot of abuse and a lot of shouting and things like that at different grounds? I know, like Leggy was saying about the death threats he got from Cardiff fans actually when he came from sort of Swansea over to Cardiff, and it was a very difficult period for him and his wife. Yeah. What was your experience of football in the 80s and 90s?
Well, some grounds, yes. Some grounds you got a lot of abuse. You know, it's all racial more than anything else. Blakey used to get it more than me because he would beat players and then come back and then beat them again and all this sort of stuff. So he would take perhaps a lot of the heat away from me and the attention away from me, I would think. But there's some grounds really, really bad. Ironically, there were, I don't know whether it's ironically or not, but Burnley was one of the worst for me. And I couldn't believe how bad it was because they had so many black players themselves. Yeah, but Burnley was probably one of the worst that I experienced.
How did you deal with that? Like, just even away from like the football side of things and being able to still play at a good level. Like, how do you deal with that as a guy? Like,
well, for me, it was reasonably. I'm not hot-headed enough, and think and react to it. And I'd probably think, well, why are they trying to do that? And it basically a lot of it is because they're trying to put you off your game.
Yeah.
Right. So I try and turn it around for a start. They're trying to put me off my game because they don't want me to play well. So if I let that happen, they're winning. So I'd probably try and focus even more to be on my game and then give them a reason to not like me or whatever. I don't even think it's a case of not like me. I think it's just a case of try and put me off my game. So that's how I used to try and turn it around. And some of it might have been racial, but I don't think too much of it was. Even though obviously it came out in a racist way, but when they've got their own players, and it's like, oh come on, my son, this, that, and the other, and then they've got somebody else, same colour skin but with a different shirt on, then it doesn't quite marry up. So there's got to be a reason, and I used to try and interpret it as they're trying to put me off my game.
What was the reaction of other players within your team if they would hear or see that sort of abuse? Would anyone ever acknowledge it, or was it because it was different times that it was almost not accepted, but it was just almost part and parcel of being a footballer? And I don't mean that it should be. I just mean that it just.
I think it's different times where it wouldn't be tolerated now. No. It's and it was almost like just that's what happens, and I've been in situations as well where my teammates or my team have sort of been going on about racism, not racism, black this, black that, and really thinking back, I should have said, oh come on, you can't, and I should have stepped in and didn't. So I think it is different times, and it wouldn't happen now, or you'd like to think it wouldn't happen now. Or my teammates have said something, they say, oh, not you, you're one of us, type stuff, So yeah, I think people's attitudes to racism and to what is said and how it affects people and all that sort of stuff has changed. So you'd like to think that it doesn't happen now, and if it does happen, that it's challenged.
Yeah, I think opinions and the way people both deal with it and think has changed drastically in that time. That since the 80s, 90s, 70s, even before that. But it doesn't make it any less unsavory and any less difficult, I don't think, or I wouldn't imagine, to deal with. I always remember some of the abuse I listened to David Cottrell take from Cardiff fans, and I was in there, and I just thought, wow, like human being, like, and that was the first time I'd ever really, because I was still relatively young at that point, and shouting at footballers and shouting at the football was kind of part of the parcel of going to the football and chanting and singing and stuff. But it was odd to me because he was from Cardiff and his family's from Cardiff, and some of the things that were being levelled at him while he was warming up, and it was weird. Like, it was a weird situation where, and I remember thinking at the time, like, it just kind of dawned on me, like, this is just bizarre, like, because if some of these people saw him while he was on Wales duty, they'd probably go and ask him for a photo or an autograph or something. It's just one of those things, I suppose. But like, I think that's also slightly is different, I think, as well, to some of the racist abuse which was handed out in the 70s and 80s and 90s. Yeah. To a lesser extent, I suppose, in the 90s. But obviously certain players had it infamously, had it quite bad, like John Barnes and Cyril Regis and
Clyde Best. Like I said, when I first started watching like football type stuff, then Clyde Best was playing for West Ham, and it was just like all the boos, and I was thinking, why are they booing him? And no, so and then obviously the bananas and all this sort of stuff coming up, and I couldn't understand it, because I've probably not really experienced it then. And then as I start playing football a little bit more, and my mum was quite fiery, and I had to stop her from going to football matches to watch me, because she'd end up wanting to fight people and stuff like that, because they're saying either some sort of racist abuse, or they're saying kick him or whatever it might be. She'd be protective, and it was like, no, I'm okay. So maybe don't go with sort of stuff. So she stopped coming to watch me, maybe because it upset her, but it would definitely be willing to fight somebody. Over
understand that. It's understandable, I guess, isn't it? It's just unfortunate at the times.
Yeah.
That's the negative of it, like your experiences at Cardiff, if you like. But let's talk about some of the positives. Promotion being the most positive or memory you have there, or is there others?
Promotion. When we won the I think it was League 2 title or whatever it was, Scunthorpe away. That was obviously a highlight. Just really, really good day. And then, you go there, took over most of the ground and all the fancy dress and all that sort of stuff. It's, ridiculous. And then obviously when we win it, and then, you just see all the fans coming on. The ball was kicked in. Some idiot kicked the ball the far side of the pitch, and everybody just stood and said, I'm not going for it. And the ref blew up. The ref could see no one was going, so he just blew up and he ran towards the ball. I don't know why he was doing. He might as well have left. It wasn't his ball anyway. But that would be the highlight. Definitely on the pitch.
I've always wondered what it's like when you're a player and those pitch invasions happen. Like, what is that initial feeling when you just see thousands of people entering there? Yeah. What is essentially an area where they're not allowed to go for every other week of the season.
Well, for me, it wasn't in those circumstances. It was just almost like joy, like they wanted to
share it with the players. Yeah.
There was never any anxiety or anything like that, because they were Cardiff fans. I suppose if you are a member of the opposition and all of those fans are coming on,
they see them running off the opposing players.
And that's different. And fortunately, a lot of the times, then the fans are there, they want to celebrate. They're not coming on to have a go at anybody. Yeah. But then that has happened, and that's and that's what makes it say it shouldn't. That they shouldn't come on. And it's spoiled by just a very small minority of people who decide, I'm going to use this opportunity to have a go at whoever it might be.
Of course.
Because he might have scored against us at some stage or whatever. So yeah, that's unfortunate. But a lot of the times it's just like almost like a celebration.
Have you got a favourite goal from your time at Cardiff?
I would say it's probably going to be on the debut, simply because it was a decent goal. But I think that first goal when you go to a new club, you know, in the league, coming out of non-league, just takes a lot of pressure off.
It settles you down, doesn't it? If you get that early goal, and it just means you haven't got that pressure building of, oh, he's played 2 games and he hasn't scored a goal, 3 games he hasn't scored a goal, 4, and it builds real quick, doesn't it? Favourite manager in your career?
I would probably say Len Ashurst, because he signed me. And I always felt that, you know, I could go and talk to him if I need to, and I could talk to Eddie May as well, really. But I always felt that, you know, Len Ashurst was someone I could go and confide in if I needed to, or just ask, you know, ask various questions, whatever it might be.
And I suppose he was the one who took a chance on you in bringing you over from Kettering. And it is, to a lesser extent, probably back then, but like that risk of bringing a player over from the lower league or whatever, and just taking a bit of a punt on them, and, you know, hopefully it'll come off. And obviously in your case it did. Speak to me a little bit about Eddie May and Len Ashurst, sort of that changeover.
So I think just completely different characters. Was Eddie May straight after Len Ashurst?
I think
was there somebody?
Might have been someone in between, but my memory is shocking.
So I'll say a little bit about the difference in characters. You know, so Len Ashurst was, you know, I think he was quite thoughtful. Whereas Eddie, I think, was perhaps a little bit more hot-headed. So I remember one time we were at, who was in charge? So Len Ashurst was in charge, and we didn't play very well. We weren't playing very well, and he came in at half time, and cups went and everything. And this is for somebody who is normally quite, you know, considerate with what he says. Cups went and all that sort of stuff, and then, you know, he got his point across. You know, I think we were better in the second half or whatever it was. So anyway, like I said, it was one of these ones that I could always talk to, and I said to him a little while afterwards, why did you sort of react like that? Because I thought we were played worse or whatever it is, whenever it might be, or I didn't think it warranted that sort of reaction or whatever. And he said, like, well, you can't do that every time, because if you do, it loses its effect. So I wanted a maximum effect. So you choose your moment for when you want when you want to make that impact. So there's other times I'm sure he felt when he wanted to chuck stuff around, but he thought, no, I'm going to save this, because if you go to level 10 every week, the players will become used to it. So and I think that might have been a big difference between Len Ashurst and Eddie May, where I think Eddie would be a lot more hot-headed, and he'd probably go to those higher levels more often.
Get the hairdryer up quicker.
Yes.
You left Cardiff to go to Barry Town.
Yeah.
And you obviously won the treble. Very successful. How was that? How did they let you know you were leaving Cardiff? Was that your decision, their decision, somewhere in the middle?
No, it wasn't my decision at all. It was, I think, basically, you know, it was at the time where the club still could keep your registration, basically, and they got to a stage where they perhaps didn't want to pay my wages, really. I thought it was a bit early, personally, because, you know, I was 32, still pretty fit, didn't really have too many injuries and all that sort of stuff. So, but I think Eddie May called me in and said, listen, you know, I think he pretty much said Rick Wright doesn't want to carry on paying you anymore, so I'm going to have to release you. And then obviously, so my thing was like, well, we've got a few games left. I still want to be playing, including the Welsh Cup final. So he said, yeah, no, you're fine with that. And so, and then obviously Eddie went to Barry then, and I'd gone to Barry, but I didn't go to Barry straight off. You know, I hung on because I did think, one, that I'd been released too early. I still felt I had a lot to give, and I wanted to see who was coming in and see if there was an opportunity to carry on.
Yeah,
you know, the same had happened with Jason Perry. I think he'd got released by Frank Burrows, I think it was, and then somebody else may have come in, or they had a change of heart or whatever, and then you know, we all know what happened with Jace. So anyway, I hung on, and Cardiff didn't appoint a manager, a bit like now, and then they eventually. The week after I'd signed, I'd hung on long. I thought, I can't hang on anymore. The week after I signed for Barry, then they got Kenny Hibberton, who'd come from Walsall. I'd always played well against Walsall. And apparently one of the first questions he'd asked was, where am I? But I should have, again, thinking ahead, should have said, if any, put it in the contract, if any league club or whatever it might be come knocking, then I can go for whatever it might be. But I didn't even think about all of that sort of stuff. So yeah, I think they let me go a little bit too early. I think the next couple of years they probably struggle to fill that hole with a winger or whatever it might be as well. You know, I saw Nick Richardson went and played their different type of player, and then I can't remember what his name is now. Then another winger came. I felt there was a little bit of a void until. I can't even remember his name, but a winger 2 or 3 years later came, and I thought he did well there. But yeah, a little bit too early for me as far as I'm concerned. But
yeah. And what about Blakey? What was he like as a teammate, as a player?
Blakey. Well, Blakey. I think half of his problem is that he's so good in any position.
Yeah.
Because, you know, he made his debut as a left back. I used to hate playing against him when he was a centre half, because sometimes he used to come and play centre half because, you know, he's quick, he's strong, he's 2-footed, you know, you can play good in the air. Why is half the centre halves you play against aren't as good as him?
Yeah.
And then he went up front or into midfield, could do it left or right foot, and you know, just glide past people, and then he could play up front because he'd be strong. So that was his problem. He could play in so many positions that I felt that he didn't know really where was going to be his best position. And then could he do it consistently? And then soon as he got a little bit of consistency to his performances, then he went. And that's all people were waiting for.
So with him, you speak very highly of his ability and the fact he could play anywhere and be good at it.
Yeah.
Is he the most gifted player you played with, do you think?
Believe it or not, one of the most gifted players I played with was at Barry.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Alan Knott. Stuff he used to do, unbelievable. I think he might have been at Spurs as whatever it might be. And I think he was perhaps a Welsh under 21. But he used to do these things in training. He even did them in matches sometimes. And I think, how did you do that? There's one time he actually played a ball through to me somehow, and the game stopped because everybody was like, "What happened there?" And then I thought, well, perhaps I should chase that.
Yeah,
but he unbelievable. And then he would do a trick, or he'd watch somebody do a trick, and then he would just go away and he'd have it perfected in 10 minutes. Wow. Unbelievable. unbelievable talent. It's not just about talent, unfortunately, but in terms of ability, I think he's probably one of the best. That I've told him that as well.
Mm-hmm. So apart from Alan Knott, is there any other players who you look back on and maybe you're surprised they didn't go on to bigger and better things?
That's a tough one, especially off the top of my head. Well, if you look at Nathan Wigper, for example,
yep.
He came in and he was like a whirlwind, wasn't he, when he first came in and doing really, really well. And, I think, was it Stoke or somebody like that made a bid for him or whatever it was, and the club turned it down, and then he just sort of fizzled out. I think the same happened with Gareth Abraham.
Yeah.
So, those are the ones I would say, perhaps. And I'm sure there's others that I would have missed out. Maybe you look at Bambi, Simon Howarth, scored goals for Fern. Chris Summers scored goals for Fern. Elsewhere, I don't think he was ever really given that real good opportunity at Cardiff, but he consistently scored goals. So there's a few, but hard to name them.
Yeah, off the top of your head, is difficult. Yeah. Obviously, Cardiff over the years have had some, should we say, interesting owners.
Mm-hmm.
What were the owners like during your 200 plus appearances at the football club? Obviously, you mentioned Rick Wright just a minute ago.
Yeah. Well, the first one was Tony Clemo, and I don't really get involved too much in terms of the ownership and all that sort of stuff. So Tony Clemo, I understand there was problems with, the wages being paid on time and all that sort of stuff. But then, I think it takes a lot of money to run a football club.
God, yeah.
If I had loads of money, I don't think I'd run a football club. I don't
put a lot into getting not very much out.
Yeah. So the fact that he was prepared to do it in the first place is good. Rick Wright, I think Rick Wright did what he said he was going to do, but I think he missed an opportunity because, when he first came in, he said, I'm going to, get positive headlines around the club, and I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do every day this week, there's going to be something about Cardiff City on the back page. So I think he knew how to manipulate the media. And then it ended up with the one just before this season started was like £1 million bonus or whatever it might be. And, he got the club sort of bouncing again.
Yeah.
Got the promotions. And then this is why I feel he made his mistake in that when we got the promotions, he said, instead of saying, right, we're going to go for it again, or even if he did, because it was the end of what he said was going to be his 2-3 years or whatever it might be. So instead of saying we're going to go for it again, and then everything would have been up and flying and whatever it is, he said, I don't know what I'm going to do. So for, the thing that kills clubs is uncertainty.
Of course.
And so everybody was on a high, and then all of a sudden, well, we don't know what we're going to do now. So I'm not buying a season ticket. I don't know what's going on here. And if he'd have said, I'm going for it, he would have sold 15,000 season tickets straight off. If he'd have said, I was going for it, then I don't even think he needed to add much to the squad. I think that squad would have gone up would have been competitive in the next league as it was. But to say, I don't know what I'm doing and then start breaking it up, I think he missed an opportunity. Even if he wanted to sell the club, if you're selling a club that's in League One or in the Championship as it is now, it will make a massive difference. And I think he missed an opportunity there. Now, there might be other reasons that I didn't know about. I don't know.
Yeah.
But from the outside, that's what I felt, that, that was an opportunity missed for real progression.
Interesting. Let's talk a little bit about Cardiff now. Obviously, as we mentioned earlier, they're relegated. Bit of negativity around the club. The managerial searches ongoing and never ending. Are you surprised by the run-in or the state of the club as it is now, considering it's not that long ago that they were challenging every season for the playoffs to the Premier League, really?
Yeah. Again, because I don't really take that big an interest in the sort of how it's running and who the chairman is and all that sort of stuff. I look at for the results and stuff like that. So I wouldn't really be able to comment on it too much. I do feel that, again, it seems to be uncertainty. When there was the managerial change at the mid-season, it seemed to me from the outside anyway, you might be able to say different, that did they really want him to be manager? Because it took ages to say, okay, you're the manager to the end of the season. And again, if I'm a manager and you'll do for now, it doesn't really fill you with confidence.
Of course not. No, it's a massive problem, isn't it? And I think that, coupled with they didn't even give him like a full coaching staff. They kind of half gave him coaches, but didn't really. And it doesn't fill you with this feeling of like, they're really backing me. They want me to go and do this job. And look, he made mistakes along the way. I think that's fair. But equally, I said the day they gave it to him to the summer, I said, they don't give him experience, at least one experienced person with him, whether it's above him or within his coaching staff, then they're setting him up to fail. Like, this is a guy who's very inexperienced, and you're giving him effectively what as the development team coaches with him. He needs someone with him that he can bounce ideas off, that is on a different wavelength and a different level of experience to him. But unfortunately, at the moment, Cardiff have a board and a manager, a board and a owner who are very successful businessmen in their own fields, but you wouldn't say that they've got a great deal of football experience in terms of their knowledge of football. And I do think that's a problem. I think in this day and age, you cannot have a football club running at that level, which isn't got some sort of football people having a good say-so on the day-to-day decisions.
Yeah.
Is that a job? Have you ever, so like after you finished playing, you went and managed, I can't pronounce the name of the team, so I'm not even going to try. That's the one. They were in the Welsh League for a bit, and then they folded, or they went to the Welsh Amateurs, didn't they? And after that, and then unfortunately they folded. Did you fancy doing more coaching, managing after that, or?
The reason I went in was because I felt I had something to offer. Went into maybe coaching and managing, and then the managerial side of it, especially with the adults, and people who are involved in it will probably say the same now, is that the level of commitment that these players are giving now isn't good enough. They want to, a lot of people will say like they want to be Welsh League players, but they want, sort of park standards. So, if I'm there, I'm going to try and do it properly. We're training once or twice a week, whatever it might be. We're attending regularly. You're not going out and having a skinful on the night before a game and all that sort of stuff. There's plenty of time for that afterwards. And that's what I would expect of the players. And what I felt was that not enough of them were prepared to do that. Sometimes every time Man United won, you knew certain players were going to be missing. You're going off. And I also felt that the defeats didn't mean anything to them. We'd lose a match, and I would be, it'd spoil my weekend.
Of course, yeah.
And before we even get into the pitch, they're talking about going out. Getting off the pitch, they're talking about going out.
Yeah.
And I just thought, well, I can't.
It's a mentality difference, isn't it?
So with the coaching, especially with the younger age groups, you're getting that enthusiasm again. Now, if they can't they will get there any time they possibly can. Sometimes the parents can't make it and stuff like that. But generally, they're there week in, week out. Yeah, and they want to learn something that they're too good to learn. Whatever it is, you always get that. But generally, the attitudes are spot on, and that's what I enjoy. And I enjoy the tactical side of it as well.
Yeah.
So within the match, what can we do to affect them or whatever it might be. I like the tactics side of it. The Gareth who I do it with now, he loves the coaching, a really good coach, so that's fine. And then I will come in with the tactics and stuff like that. And we see things differently anyway. We look at different things, so it works quite well.
Could we ever see you as part of like the Merthyr first team setup, do you think?
I doubt it. I doubt it very much, no.
Is there something, like, would you like to progress through football now and in terms of, go and coach and that side of it? Or do you prefer, are you happy coaching the younger lads and helping them to be developed and prepared? And
I think I will stick with the younger age group. Age groups, maybe not really young, but
sort of
up to 16, 17, stuff like that. And then, I'm getting older now. I'm enjoying sitting on the settee, watching the television, eating cakes and stuff like that. So, it's going to get to the stage where it is getting to the stage where I'm enjoying doing that more than going out. I don't want to feel on a Tuesday night or whatever night it is, oh God, I've got to go coaching.
Yeah, of course you don't.
So as long, and that's not been the case with the youngsters. Sometimes it got that way with the adults, and so and you're not looking forward to it. So with the youth, it's good, and so I'll carry on doing it until that goes.
I think as well is you've been a professional athlete. The standards required to achieve that and maintain that, you obviously do sacrifice certain things when you're doing it, whether it's going out or whether it's eating certain things or it's training extra or, all these different things.
Yeah.
And I know the game has changed from when you were a player, but not that much. You still had to sacrifice and you still had to work hard and you still had to go without certain things and not go out as much and eat the right things. So why shouldn't you at, this stage when you finished playing up and you're enjoying the coaching, why should you not have a donut or a bit of sugar and stuff?
I used to have donuts before.
Yeah, well, that's it.
Yeah, no, it's you're right.
You know what I mean? Like you've done the sacrifice part of it, so you should be able to enjoy whatever it is. If they was going for a run every day, but in your own time, that's the same thing. You've done it on other people's time.
Yeah,
it's your time as well, isn't it? After you finish playing. And with regards to all of your career and you look back on it, do you have any regrets at all?
I haven't really, don't really tend to.
Don't do regrets.
Not really, because you can't change it.
No.
I think if there was going to be one thing, it was when I was, where was I? I was at Leicester United before Kettering, and clubs were looking at me. I'm not saying I was playing particular. No, clubs were looking, and we were doing all right as a team, but we were winning a game 4-0, and I went into a challenge on the edge of my own box into a 50-50, and the lad went over the top and done me. Like I say, last minute of the game. So if there was a regret to be had, it would be that I never went into that challenge. I mean, he did try and do me. I realised at last minute, got myself out, so it wasn't like a broken leg or anything like that. But I was out of the game for 3 months. And then Notts County were particularly interested in that time. I mean, it was a Midlands side, but and they watched me first game back. I hadn't even kicked a ball properly because they just put me straight back in the side. So I'm sure that they were very, very interested. But
it takes a while to settle, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like when you get back from an injury.
Yeah. So that would have been my regret, that I've not gone into that. And then I think if I had not gone into that challenge, I would probably have been a professional earlier, because it took me like 2 years to get into the professional game then. So 2 or 3 years earlier, you're playing football in the Midlands, so there's amount of teams around, there's so many more. And then it makes you wonder what could have happened. You know, I mean, you never know. You could have been involved in a car crash, and that could have been the end of it.
Yeah, of course.
Maybe that. So just going in, it's all about decisions, and that silly decision to go into that challenge on the edge of my own box, 4-0. You know, so it's
Just set
asking.
you back a little bit.
Yeah, that would be it though. But I don't really. You try and learn from mistakes in the past, and I've learned not because the lad had been talking to me all through the match. You know, he'd been fine. So you learned, one, never to trust people, and just to be on your guard all the time. Come back and apologise after the match, but it's too late then.
It's no use, is it?
Yeah.
The one thing we haven't talked about is goalkeepers. Just very quickly, best goalkeeper you played against and best goalkeeper you played with.
Against? Oh God.
Who could you never score against?
I don't know. I don't know. I never looked at the goalkeepers and thought, I'm not going to score past him.
Okay.
Because 9 times out of 10, it's going to be like they're in the same league as you. So regardless of where they've been, this is where they are now. So you're playing at the same standard. So why can you not do yourself justice? And I used to think that, regardless of whether they're ex-England players or goalkeepers, just people are coming up against, they are playing at the same standard as you now. So,
I like that attitude. I really do. I might take that one. I like that. That's good. That's good. And what about keepers you played with, like teammates? Anyone stand out?
Well, perhaps I should say Wardy, seeing his, but George Wood was there with however many Scottish caps he had and stuff like that. But I don't feel like I ever saw the best of George, really, because it was right at the end of his career, and it was perhaps only a season or whatever it might be, or half a season. So it's a difficult one. Roger Hansbury,
favourite keeper when I was little.
So it's a difficult one. On that one is.
No worries. Listen, Cohen, it's been a lot of fun this morning, I got to say. I've really enjoyed spending time with you. Really enjoyed talking to you about your career. Really enjoyed the donut as well.
Donuts are king.
And a couple of cups of tea, so it's all good. Guys, please do like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And indeed, Cohen Griffith.
Thank you very much, son.
Thank you, mate.